Why is it that when a 13-year-old girl says she's reading a YA romance, it isn't treated in the same way as when a 38-year-old man says he's reading George Orwell? Is it because books are genuinely higher up on the food chain compared to other books? Or is it because the hierarchy of literature, much like everything else in our society, is deeply rooted in sexism? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Gracie. Welcome to Bitching in Bed, the podcast where I talk about things that make you uncomfortable from the place where I'm most comfortable. Today, I wanted to talk about the hierarchy of literature in our society and the importance of reading in our current political climate, especially in the face of AI and the rise in artificial intelligence that we are seeing everywhere. This concept of there being a hierarchy of literature is basically saying that some books, for whatever reason, are more valuable and more accredited than others. You are deemed as better for reading those books in comparison to others. For example, if we look at the classics, Moby Dick, Oliver Twist, A Tale of Two Cities, Persuasion, Sense and Sensibility, those books are deemed as highbrow. But if we look at some of the books going viral on TikTok right now, like Emily Henry books, or just romance in general, you tend to find that they aren't met with the same level of respect as the classics. There was an event done for the recent Booker Prize where different celebrities and reading enthusiasts were asked if they've ever lied about reading a book. And for all the ones that said, yes, I have lied about reading a book, all of them were what society would deem as more highbrow, high-class literature, like The Odyssey or Dante's Inferno. And they said they did it in order to appear smarter or to seem more academic. But why are those kind of books socially considered more academic or more highbrow, more valuable? I think what's important to acknowledge is that literature in its most basic form is valuable. Literature is one of the most valuable currencies we have in our current society. Like I said, specifically in the face of AI-generated art and AI-generated poetry and media and literature, human written literature is so important. And reading, especially in this current society, is so important. I recently made a TikTok about how it is not a flex to have not read a book since you were 12 years old and to bash people that read and to label them and box them in as nerds and nerdy and geeky and think that reading is something that you are above. That's not cool. And a lot of people had a lot of angry stuff to say. And guess what? All the people that were angry at me are people that haven't read since they were 12, and none of them could form articulate arguments. I wonder why that is. We can tell you've not picked up a book since you were 10. The argument was that it's elitist to shame people for not reading. There are a lot of barriers to reading, dyslexia being one of them, as well as other disabilities. A lot of people work busy schedules, a lot of people have busy lives. But my argument was that I understand there are barriers to picking up a book and sitting down with it, but to not have any of those barriers in front of you and think it's a flex that you are neglecting to care about the world around you via reading, that's kind of weird, bro. So anyway, back to this hierarchy of literature. Why is it that the classics and contemporary fiction and dystopian fiction are treated the way that they are, but the romance genre is bashed? When you look at this metaphorical hierarchy of literature, romance always falls on the bottom. And let me be very clear that criticizing literature and criticizing specific works of literature and bashing them are completely different things. Critique is so important in everything. Criticism and the ability to improve, correct, change is part of being human. Bashing literature for no other reason than you feel like it is not okay. To read a thriller or a dystopian is praised, but to read a romance is bashed. And I personally think it is down to the fact that the main target audience for romance literature is women and girls. Women and girls, stereotypically and statistically, love romance literature more so than men and boys. And society doesn't have a great track record or is not in the habit of valuing things that women and girls love. We are not taken as seriously in our passions than men are. Let's talk about where romance literature came from. 200 years ago, in the early 1800s, men existed in a political, social, undomestic sphere in society, whereas women existed purely in a domestic sphere. It is also very important to note that when I say this, I am specifically talking about white women and we need to be clear and intersectional in our feminism and recognize that for women of color at this time and people of color in general, but specifically women of color, life looked very differently than it did for white women. But in a general sense, in the early 1800s, men and women existed very differently. The introduction of romance books offered something new and exciting and different to the monotonous routine of this domestic world that women purely lived in. Of cooking and cleaning and looking after the baby, romance literature offered something new and exciting that broke up this boring routine. Romance literature was something that was ours, books written by women for women. But because of this, it historically turned men against the romance genre and began to form this modern hierarchy of literature as we know it. Because romance literature offered women independence and men didn't like that. In Maya Rodal's Dangerous Book for Girls, which is explaining why the romance genre has such a poor reputation, she says, romance novels feature nuanced portrayals of female characters having adventures, making choices, and accepting themselves just as they are. When we say that these stories are silly and unrealistic, we are telling young girls not to expect to be the heroines in their own real lives. With this, Rodal is not only highlighting the importance and what the romance genre did for women and still does for women, but she's also saying that for every time the romance genre is bashed as unworthy and as unvaluable, you're setting the precedent that the things inside these books are not valuable, the messages they're conveying, the stories they're telling, and that we can't expect as women to ever be awarded these kinds of opportunities and these kinds of storylines for ourselves. And to say that any book does not have any kind of value inside it is ludicrous. The importance of reading and the importance of literature will forever be deeply rooted in the fact that every single piece of literature always has been and always will be political. I personally believe that not reading is doing yourself a disservice. Everyone should be reading in some capacity. It is not a flex to not be reading. Reading is political. It helps us gain understanding of the world around us, of how things work, how things navigate. Half the information in my brain, random facts that I know, I've picked up through books. We cannot argue that reading and books and literature are not political when we've just argued that without getting into the specifics of each individual book, a whole genre is rooted in politics, in gendered sexist politics. Reading is so important. Reading helps us navigate the world around us. People that are writing are gaining that knowledge from the world around them, and they are feeding that into something that then you take out and then you put that into something else. It improves our critical thinking and personal growth and our imagination, our ability to think and imagine and feel. And all of those things are in decline and are being jeopardized by the rise in AI. Reading will never not be political. Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Animal Farm, Perks of Being a Wallflower, Handmaid's Tale, all of these things are rooted in politics, are trying to warn us, tell us something, show us something about the world around us. Even romance, even the most basic form of smutty, smut, is political. The act of writing is political. Not everyone has that luxury to be able to have free thought and put pen to paper. Look at 1984. 1984 by George Orwell is the manifestation of what happens when we lose the power of literature, what the world is capable of when it takes books from us, when it takes knowledge from us, when it takes power from us. Because the second books go, we lose our knowledge and power. The simple act of putting pen to paper in 1984 is a crime. Free speech is being infringed on every single day all around the world. The act of writing is political. The act of reading is political. The act of keeping a diary is political. I don't care if you're reading the smuttiest smut and it's about fairies fucking vampires. Look at Harry Potter. It was meant to be a kid's book. And the whole system is a political system that reflects that of the Nazi regime. You can't tell me that that kid's book is not political. I don't care if you're reading fairies, fucking ponies, fucking vampires, fucking unicorns. I don't care. It's valuable to absorb any kind of media, any kind of literature is valuable. People don't value smart and fan fiction fine. But most of the time, those people are people that have not read since year 12, or they've read 3 Harlan Coben books and think they rule the world. You know? Because if we do not value the gift that is literature, it could be taken away. And that is a horrifying, scary world to live in. Reading does not just come from sitting down and picking up a book. Reading is everywhere. The value in reading does not change depending on what you're reading or how you're consuming it. Whether it be through an audiobook, whether it's someone reading it to you, whether you're reading it, whether it's a play, a book, fan fiction, smut, whether you're reading articles on your phone, whether you're reading a physical newspaper, all of these things are valuable. And I think another thing I wanted to talk about specifically regarding the importance of reading is the rise in AI and the decline in people's cognitive abilities and critical thinking skills, and how reading can help combat this. Because I do genuinely think that people are losing critical thinking skills in the face of AI and because of our reliance as a society on AI. And I do think a lot of it isn't our fault because it's everywhere. You can't search on Google anymore without being given an AI response. Sometimes it is inescapable. There was a recent study done on the correlation between using AI tools and a decrease in critical thinking skills. One of the most important takeaways from this study being that younger participants aged 17 to 25 showed a higher dependence on AI tools and lower thinking skills than older age groups did. And I see it on TikTok all the time. This absolute inability to think for yourself. It's happening with book talk. No one is recommending anything new anymore because people are scared. People are scared to think for themselves. And even if they do think for themselves, we're in a society where it's too scary to share those thoughts. It's like a TikTok where it's like, make this recipe with me, and it's like got eggs and milk in it, and the top comment will be, I'm lactose intolerant, what do I do? Well, this video wasn't for you then. Or like, it's a cake recipe and someone's like, yeah, but I don't really like cake. Well, then this video wasn't for you. Use your brain. Use your brain. Not everything has to be relatable to everyone. We need to start unrotting our brains before it's too late. Like, I genuinely mean that. I'm so fearful of the way that we're heading as a society. And I do find Book Talk to be quite a safe space some of the time. I have blocked a lot of accounts that I find negative, or a lot of pages that I find negative, or that don't serve me or support me, so that I can very solely be building a community around me that I find safe and reliable and unthreatening. But it's true, when we look on Book Talk, when we look on TikTok in general, it's just the same trends being fed out over and over again, and the same ideas being fed out over and over again. No one is thinking for themselves. Well, not no one, but very few people are thinking for themselves. It's like we're using AI to write our emails for us. Have you forgotten how to say, hi, my name is, this is what I'd like, goodbye? And the biggest, scariest part of all of this is the way in which AI is crafting music and poetry and art and literature, and genuine artists and musicians and real people with real jobs and real talent are at risk. Because if AI can do it, who cares? But AI is never ever going to capture the same level of nuance, the same level of importance, the same fragment of detail in anything that a human being can do. AI is not the way forward. AI is not going to save us, we are going to save us. I think it's so important to ignore this hierarchy of literature. If your only barrier into reading is your fear of what type of media and what type of literature you're consuming, then I'm here to tell you now that that barrier is something you yourself can overcome. I used to be so embarrassed to sit in public and read romance novels. Why? Because I was scared that people wouldn't take me seriously as a reader. I was scared that people wouldn't acknowledge me as someone that cares about literature because, oh, she just reads romance. And even though I don't really read much romance now, I still find myself having to justify what I read and why I read. Indulge in the written word and support genuine artists and genuine writers. Avoid using AI where you can, because AI is not the future, we're the future. And fuck anyone that tells you that your fairy, unicorn, dragon smut isn't valid reading, because it is. My Wolfstar Marauders Jegulus fanfics are valid, and therefore your Akatar Throne of Pussies is valid too. Sorry, I don't read romanticies, so I don't know what any of them are called, but Brittany Broski talks about them a lot, so I think Throne of Glass, Roads of Dildos? I can't remember. The written word will never not be important. Reading brings me so much joy. Reading articles can be scary, reading the news can be scary, but it's so important to know about the world around us. If we don't know what's going on in the world around us, we lose all power. We lose all ability to have a coherent voice in this ongoing scary argument that is politics and that is the world. And I'm not saying you need to be informed on every single issue, because I'm not, but be informed on the issues that affect you and affect the people you love. And read things that you love. Reading is my actual one true love. Nothing brings me joy like a book. Nothing brings me joy like a good story, because you see so much of yourself and the people you love and the things you love in literature. It's all out there waiting for you. There can be a lot of barriers to entry when it comes to reading. Like I said, dyslexia, ADHD, other disabilities, other factors, busy lives. But stick on an audiobook while you clean, you know? But if your only barrier to entry is your fear of what other people will think of you reading your fairy smut or your thriller or your this or your that on the bus, on the train, your friends online, fuck that. Because the second people start demonizing certain types of literature, we are into heavily scary, fascist, dystopian territory that we cannot afford to retreat back to in this current society. Go pick up a book. Thank me later. If you want some good book recs, I post book talk shit over on TikTok. I'm taking a little bit of a break at the moment because A, I'm definitely shadow banned, and B, I'm just sort of customizing, rebranding. I turned 20 in a few days and I'm going to go into my 20th year, starting fresh, figuring my shit out. But if you want to go and follow me over on TikTok, it's Gracie Yaps Too Much. It'll be in the description. And if you want to see what I get up to day to day, my Instagram is Gracie Summers 18. I hope you all have a good day. Please let me know down below what you're currently reading, if you have any book recs for me, and if you're related to this, if you have any ways to escape AI, please let me know. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching till the end. I love you all so much. Thank you. Mwah.